Welcome to the Summit Up 2. And the Summit Up is really interesting because we talked about the summit and how it's in order to climb a summit, you really need to have a team and you really need to have a plan and you need to have a lot of different aspects of it. But what I really love about what we're going to be discussing today is all about community. But before I do, I just wanted to introduce first of all, my co-host, the infamous Russ Devan. Welcome, Russ.
Welcome.
So Russ is here. And also our panelists today, we have the incredible, sharp, gorgeous looking sharp in her Navy outfit, Lisa Bowen from the UK. Welcome, Lisa. And then we also have Martin Ball. Now, Martin Ball, whenever you're around him, everybody has a ball. I think that's why he's living up to his last name. I mean, he is a community builder. He's a mover and a shaker, and we're really fortunate to have him with us today, sharing some of his thoughts. So today is a Summit Up 2, and it's something that we're going to endeavor to do once a month, so where we will actually highlight people that are in the Noble Goldman Vault. And Noble Goldman is a community of like-minded people who are really looking to raise the consciousness of the world by creating people that are free for that time for money. We're a community that's really looking to create freedom for people, especially at this what's happening in the world right now. Freedom is a word that everybody's looking for. So Noble Goldman is endeavoring to do that. We have a mandate to create 1 million millionaires. And how we're going to achieve that is a variety of things. But one of the great things that we're doing is a thing called the Vault. And with the Vault, it's like a Netflix of personal development. But one of the things that we've noticed is this personal development. We've also noticed that there's a lot of communities being built within the Vault. So this is why we brought up this topic, is that there's within this vault that we're creating, there are communities being built. And really, when we talk about your network being your net worth, and in order to be able to get to the summit of any mountain, you need a success posse, a community. And so that's what each one of the presenters here are going to be taking one aspect of it and sharing with you for roughly 15 minutes or so. And then we're going to have a little roundtable. First up, I wanted to pass this over to Russ Devan, my co-host here today, and so he could introduce our first presenter.
Well, thank you, Walter. It's my privilege. Just to dovetail and encapsulate what you said, it's interesting how the theme today is community. And that, in fact, is the purpose of Noble Goldman and the Vault, is ideally really tapping into the talent, the contribution that's in the world and the world community and bringing that together. And it doesn't just include, of course, people that want to improve themselves and grow are the first people to be attracted to something like this theme, but it includes so much more. I ask myself sometimes, how many people in the world have something to say and no place to say it? How many people have something to give, an invention, a solution, a conversation, and their ability to give it is somewhat limited? And it's kind of an interesting metaphor that Mark Santos, the owner and the founder of Noble Goldman, created with the Vault, because when you think of a vault, it protects treasure. It has great, valuables in it and secret formulas and all that. But when you think of a vault, it's something you lock up, it's tight, and it's limited. All vaults have limited space until this one. This is a virtual vault that has no limitation for contribution, that has no limit for people being seen or heard or making a difference in the world. So I think that's a great segue into our first guest today. I met our guest about, a year ago, maybe a little bit longer now. I've lost all sense of time. One of the reasons is I've met more close relationships. I mean close, because let's face it, this is the new intimacy. It really is. with this type of electronic platform, you can meet and get to know and see and almost touch, not quite, but almost touch anybody anywhere in the world. And I've developed more close, intimate relationships in the last 2.5 years than I have in the first 67 of my life. I'm 68 years old now. And I have maybe a handful of friends from high school, 2 or 3 from college. And before that, going back to my best friend in my hometown, maybe another, I don't know, 50. And everyone else's names. And the paradigm has always been, well, you only have about 4 or 5 close friends in life. Don't buy it. That's not so anymore. Now, the person I'm introducing isn't just a friend. She's not just a professional coach and life coach, not just a therapist. She's my mentor. And one of them, certainly I've been blessed enough to have plenty, but one client of hers compared her to a combination, a way station between a Jedi Knight and Mary Poppins. And that's a good way to describe her. She is so endearing, so sweet, and so tough at the same time. She cuts right through to it. And she's someone who you can count on, and you know it from the minute she opens her list. It's my pleasure to introduce Lisa Bowen.
Well, thank you, Russ. And it is an honor to be part of this panel and to be able to work with people such as yourself, Walter, and Martin. This platform has taken me to a whole new level of working with people who are inspiring me to step up into being a better leader, a better community member. And I just wanted to really kick this off with, what is community? The dictionary definition, very loosely, is a group whose members have something in common. And we all have something in common in Noble Goldman, and that for us is global, but for a lot of places, community is location specific. But for us, it's where we all want to go. We all want to create something better. But I want to share with you that it's only recently, since Noble Goldman, that I've really started to not only understand community, but to understand the power and the benefit of community. Because I have to tell you, for many years, community for me was constraining. To fit into community, you had to follow the rules, you had to do what everybody else told you to do, you had to fit into, and I was a square peg in a round hole. It just did not work. So for many years, I've sort of been on my own because communities were too restrictive. I wasn't able to be my true self because the rules of whichever community I was in at any given time were quite, well, I don't say quite restrictive, but I felt constrained. So for me, stepping into Noble Goldman and the YDS, the Your Desired Success community, has been a total eye-opener, I have to say. And I'm 59 years old, and to get to this age and suddenly realize that, oh, this is what a community is about. I grew up in a small community, and boy, was that restrictive. Everybody knew what you were doing. You couldn't get into trouble because if you didn't tell your parents, somebody else did. It was just really always felt constricted. So for me to suddenly realize the power of community, and for me, a community is a big team. We do a lot of looking at teams, and we work in teams. And the only time I really understood a team was when I was in the military, and I was part of a specialist instructors team. And I really understood, because in that case, nobody was important except the reputation of the team. And that's the first time I've ever experienced that, because everybody else always wanted to be the top dog and whatever. So this was new for me. But what this has done is opened up so much more than that. Everybody wants to see everybody succeed. And it's not just about the team, it's about watching everybody succeed in their own way. And that is new for me. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that's not experienced that in the past. But I just wanted Mary-Ann shared a post this week that really resonated with what we're talking about here. So I'm going to read, I can put the glasses on, but I'm going to read this out. And it said, on an empowered team, read community, leaders understand the weight and clarity of their respective roles in the team. There is no one person who carries the burden of execution alone. Everyone contributes to the overall success of the organization. When structured properly, leadership becomes cyclical. In other words, leaders generate leaders. There are 4 key components to this type of leadership environment. Responsibility. All leaders follow through on their commitments. Ownership. All leaders feel like they have an important influence on the positive trajectory of the team and business. Trust. All leaders believe in the capability, follow through, knowledge, skills, and honesty of their team members. Accountability. All leaders apply equal discipline in the execution of their commitments. And I'm seeing this so much in Noble Goldman. I really am seeing a lot of this. And when you enact a leaders generate leaders model in your organization, you create shared responsibility, shared ownership, shared accountability, and shared trust. Individuals do not feel like siloed people working without cohesion, but as a member of a synchronized team working in tandem to achieve their goals. Was this written for NG or what? I mean, this to me was just perfect. So it says, this is the essence of productive collaboration. Team members help set the standards and agree to meet and often exceed them. And even though we don't have a team goal necessarily within this community, this is what's so different, is that we're all supporting each other to create our own individual goals. Whereas often in a team or a community, it's about the team goal. Like one goal, everybody's coming together. And this is, for me, is one of the real powers here. So it says that this model also empowers every member of your team with a hearty sense of self-worth. They will believe that at any given time, if they were asked to step up, they can become the most pivotal team player on your roster. They can take the work that the team has already put into motion and lead everyone to victory. I don't know about you, but I got goosebumps reading that. That, for me, could have been written for Noble Goldman. It really, really could. And I wanted to sort of elaborate a little bit because, you know, yes, that's about team, but that is community. As I said, for me, team is a big, or a community is a big team. But community has a culture. Every community has a culture. And the culture stems from the leadership. And that's another reason why this platform is so powerful, because it's a group of leaders coming together who are working for the common good to help everybody else achieve their goals. I don't know anywhere in the world that you'll find this. I really don't, not even within the military. It's just it's a very different perspective. But I think for leadership, this is where, what's the word I'm looking for? This is where each one of us can step in. And we've seen this recently with people stepping in to help Russ co-host his It's All Your Vote. We've seen GD stepping up into learning how to present and creating a program to teach people how to present this. Now, many communities I've been in, especially over in Australia, there's a tall poppy syndrome. It's very, very real in Australia, as I'm sure Martin will attest. It's tall poppy syndrome, meaning that as soon as you get a little bit taller than somebody else, somebody will come and chop your head off. Okay, they'll pull you straight back down. And it's a very real thing in Australia. But what I realized is that in Australia, everybody on the surface wants you to succeed, but then they'll do everything they can to trip you up and make sure you don't. Yeah. And this is, I'm sure it's not limited to Australia. I'm sure it is elsewhere in other organizations, because everybody's looking out for themselves. And this is what I saw a lot in the military, except for this one particular team, is that everybody is looking out for each other as long as they're going to be the ones that come out on top. So there's a what's in it for me type of thing within the community, and whatever that community or team is. And what I'm seeing here is so different. I'm feeling so different. I have never, not even in the military, have I ever been supported in the way I've been supported in this community. Never have I been so encouraged to grow, to step out of my comfort zone, to grow and to create more leaders. And this is something, as a consultant with Bob Proctor, this is my definition of a leader. A good leader is one who creates other good leaders. And that, I'm sure this is why this platform resonates so much with me, because we are creating leaders. And Martin, you know, as we're developing your desired success, and we're seeing these leaders stepping up into roles that they wouldn't have even contemplated before. But the beauty of this community for me is that it doesn't take away from the community goal, the YDS goal or the NG goal or the Russ Divan, the success by design, power versus force, any of these doesn't take away from those. What it does is it adds to the goal. And for me, something as a coach I learned a long time, well, not as a coach, as a business owner, is that when my staff's goals match my business goals, we're a match made in heaven, because everything is aligned. But in most cases, we have the business goal or the community goal or the team goal that is not in alignment with the individuals making up that team or community. And we've done everything here. Mark has turned everything on its head. He really has. And it's just the most incredible model. People are supporting each other to develop, which helps us achieve the team goal, the community goal of, was it 4.5 million members? Whatever those figures are, that would not happen in most places, because people would be stepping on each other to become the person who gets recognized for it. Don't tell me you haven't experienced that in your life somewhere. We've done something and then somebody pushes you out of the way and takes credit for it. And I don't see that happening here. This is the real beautiful thing, is that I see everybody working together on their own projects, supporting each other. Thank you, Martin. Supporting each other on their projects, which is going to help the community project or the goal. And in reality, every single one of us here just wants to make the world a better place, whether it includes 4.5 million people or not. I don't know. Every one of us wants to make the world a better place. And we will all do that in different ways. But for the first time in my life, as a business owner, I've been an entrepreneur business owner for 15 years. And this is the first time I've had a team around me. A team who aren't even my employees. They're not even my contractors, but they want my goal as much as I do. That is the most incredible gift. So for me, community, NG, Noble Goldman, which is a community of communities, and how does it get any better than that? Yes, we've got all these beautiful communities coming together. And I mentioned earlier on about silos, and normally this community over here, because this is their focus, would stay over here. And this community over here, because this is their focus, would stay over here. And what we're creating here is an opportunity for people to come together. And I use it a bit like a family tree. I say Noble Goldman is the grandparents, and then you've got your family, and then you've got Uncle Russ over here, we've got Uncle Walter over there, and they've got cousins and stuff. And we sort of chop and change. We go and have family outings and parties and that kind of stuff. But for me, this whole thing is the definition of community. I think the definition needs to be rewritten as Noble Goldman. Because for me, that's what this is. So thank you.
That was beautiful, Lisa. It really was. Thank you. And I don't want this to land like a correction, but more like how big this vision is. You know, the world's got a lot of people in it. Yeah. And 4.5 million is a lot for people to get their head around. 450 million, which is Mark's goal, is even harder. And yet, I want to point something out. 8 years ago, I saw this little flash documentary. Did you know that China will soon be the largest English-speaking country in the world? Did you know that freshmen entering their freshman year in college would be studying subjects that would be outdated by the time they were juniors. Did you know that by the year 2020, Facebook will be the 5th largest country in the world? And I'm going, okay, you had me up until that point. All right. And then you lost me. It's 2013. Right. But you know, I looked up the other day that China still is the largest country in the world at world with 1.4 billion people. That's what, 4 times the size of the United States, roughly. Okay. What about India? Because I heard India would soon be first, but they're right behind China at 1.389 billion people. Okay. And I don't know. That's 2021 figures. But then I looked up the population of Facebook. Is Facebook a community? I guess it could be called one. The Facebook community membership is 2.8 billion people. 2.8 billion. Are they connected? Are they friends? Are they a community? Well, you answer that. But what we're out, as Lisa said, to do is turn the paradigm on its head. I believe it's possible to really have 6,000 friends, people who you actually know, who you're connected to, who you have a relationship with, who you can make a difference for. As a matter of fact, I don't think it has a cap on it. I think paradigms were meant to be broken. Paradigms were meant to be shifted. And as soon as you shift one paradigm, you just create another one. But Lisa, you did a beautiful job. And thank you for opening so gracefully. Now it's my pleasure.
Sorry, Russ, can I just very quickly add to that, just very quickly? The reason we'll achieve this is because everybody is focusing on their own goal, which is different than everybody focusing on their big goal.
Yeah, no, that's right.
That's why we'll achieve this.
And you also hit on something, so I might as well dovetail on it just for a second. But I just want to say, you mentioned something about there's a different feeling here. There's a different feeling in the Noble Goldman community. It's different from other things you might have seen. Or now, how many times do you hear that? This is different, that's different. But my experience is that as this has grown to thousands of members right before my eyes, there's a common denominator that seems to run among all of them. And it's this connection to the heart. The people here have a different feel, like they love and they're interested in other people, and they're explorers, and they're daring, and they step up and share themselves, and they get interested in other people. And I think it's bold to say this, and I don't want to throw anybody off with it, but there's a soul, a spirit that's being created in this community. And I think maybe that is something that's missing in a lot of community today. So anyway, again, thanks, because you said it just perfect. Now, the next speaker I'm going to introduce, I admire so deeply, and I haven't known very long, only for really about 2 years. But his beginnings are incredibly humble. He started his life in a third world country and grew up there with distinctions that most people never realize, thank goodness. But he raised himself from that to be one of the greatest coaches I've ever met. He is skilled and certified in something called core performance. And he coaches productivity from a mind energy perspective, something he's licensed to do, and he does gracefully and so well. He's incredibly humble. And when I first met him, I knew that I wanted to learn from him. I wanted to be around him, his gentleness, his manners. As a matter of fact, there's a part in Noble Goldman, since we've talked about that and the community that it is, that talks about the transcendence from the me to the we to the us. This is the person who wrote that. If there's someone who has a vision for what community is and what's possible for it to be, it's Walter Aguilar. Walter.
Thank you, Russ. That was quite the intro. I was looking around. Who is that humble guy? Oh, that must be me.
Yeah, I do that when the word humble comes up too.
So I thank you for that. It is truly a privilege not only to be here on this panel with you three, but also to have other people from all over the world take time out of their day to come listen to what we have to say. I think that sometimes we talk a lot that time is our most precious commodity, but I think that being able to acknowledge the people that are here listening to us is very important as well. Again, I was a special needs dad for 20 years, and what my son taught me is that I'm perfectly imperfect, and every moment is perfection in all its flaws. So things don't always go perfect, but that's perfect. Yeah, thanks a lot on that intro about the me to the we to the us. Really interesting because when I first had that insight, it was really profound, and I've been contemplating that for a while. And I've even had an opportunity to talk to the founder of IPEC, where I was certified. His name is Bruce Schneider. Bruce Schneider. He's a very conscious man, and we've had a really good talk about that. And I wanted to share what we came up with, and I think that it's going to really dovetail to what Lisa said, what Russ has said, and it may even, if it's energetically in the flow, it'll probably blend in with what Martin and Russ are going to be sharing afterwards. So I'm going to share my screen with you. So this is the thing that many people have seen around the community as well. This is the gentleman, Bruce Schneider, who developed this back in 2006. And what it is based on a premise that we have roughly seven levels of consciousness, awareness, engagement, and confidence. And that at the very center of this stuff is our self-perception. Down here is where we perceive who we perceive ourselves to be based on our values, our beliefs. And beliefs are just statements that we believe to be true based on past experience. Values are principles we live by, all our experiences, all our fears, and what have you. And these basically are split up into a couple of different energies. There's catabolic, which is a contracting energy. Some people call it negative. Again, that's a simplistic way of looking at it, but catabolic means a contracting energy. It's at fight, flight, or freeze. You find a lot of those in the first two energy levels. This particular chart is read from left to right. So you have a core thought. So a lot of our energy, because we are, as I always like to let people know, is that we're these energetic spiritual beings having a human experience of cause and effect. In other words, we also have these things called feelings and thoughts. And we are not our feelings, we're not our thoughts, we're having feelings, we're having thoughts. So a lot of that is really based on our core thought. And I know that many people talk about the base of our thoughts are usually either fear or love. I like to sort of put it that I believe that love is a decision. So I believe that a conscious thought is love. When you make, and that's why the idea that people say they fall out of love, no, you just make a choice to no longer act in a loving way. So the way this reads here is that at the self-perception chart, we always talk about this thing about the me. And the reason why, if you look from right to left, you would feel like at level one, a victim, not so much as a bully or bullying, but more feeling at the effect of life, like life is happening to you. Your core feeling emotions, apathy, I call it the whatever attitude. And then your action is lethargy, where there's not a lot of energy. At this point, you're going to be in the lowest level of engagement, lowest level of awareness, lowest level of confidence. We've all been there. We know what it's like to have these pity parties. And as well, when you get tired of being in your lower energy, you'll go to the second one, which is more of the conflict energy. It's anger. It's anger at yourself, at others. All these, there's a lot of defiance in there. There's a lot of judging, a lot of labeling. And the reason why all that happens is because these are called the self-protection energy. So this is all about me, right? There's this self-perception of who we think we are. It's all about me. It's like when we feel like we have to protect or defend ourselves, we'll drop into these energies. And also the other thing that also shows up is that when we're afraid of losing something that we're very attached to, an outcome, a person, a thing. So it's interesting because the majority of the world resonates in these energies. If you really look at the way people are making decisions nowadays, it's either based on fear or desire, right? Right? They're afraid of losing something. If you really want to know what you're attached to, sit and contemplate your fear and you'll see what you're attached to. And when you really look at desire really is that whole thing about what is it that you want, right? And so a lot of people have a lot of things outside of themselves that they think they need, right? So and so when you look at that, this is the me that the world resonates around, right? And so what we've actually realized that if we can move up the energy levels to really learning self-mastery, and one of the things that we have to understand is the roles we play in life is not who we are, it's what we do. So whether you're a husband, wife, entrepreneur, employee, employer, that's not who you are, it's what you do, right? And even your brain is not who you are, it's a tool. This tool, you use it to navigate this life journey. And what happens when you start getting really good at the self-mastery, you start to be able to take responsibility and you start to increase in awareness that you're not your thoughts, you're not your feelings. You start taking responsibility and you start to have a little bit of forgiveness for yourself and others and cooperation. Now, this is this energy here is more of a thought level. It's a coping energy. You become a master rationalizer, right? Life could be better, life could be worse, what have you. And then you'll find this energy up here where a lot of people that come into Noble Goldman come from. They have a desire to make a difference. There's concern, there's a lot of compassion, there's a lot of acts of service. This is Noble Goldman seems to attract a lot of people on level 4 because they have a heart to want to make a difference, make an impact in the world, right? And what happens is a lot of helping that goes in there, but it's also really easy to get all tired and have compassion fatigue if you're always given. So that's why we have the next energy, which is more of the reconciliation, where things aren't good or bad. It's about being more effective, less effective. We actually are able to create peace because we start to understand acceptance. We start to understand the platinum rule. What we think others want and need may not be what they want to need. We start to understand the true meaning of paying it forward. We start to learn about treat your neighbor as yourself, the golden rule. So we're able to now create a we. So we're now able to go into relationships. Many of us who are married or have spouses, we know this because the reason why we got married is because we were able to make that shift where we were to take responsibility for ourselves. We started to consciously choose to be loving to another human being. We started to also accept that, you know what, it's not about perfection. It's about learning how to live with someone. And not only that, to also be around people that are not exactly like us. And that's neither good nor bad. It's just sometimes it's more effective, less effective, right? So we start to create, and if you notice from a energy frequency level, when we're in self-protection, we resonate at a very low level of frequency. And that's why the whole idea that you don't attract what you want in this world, right? Because that's very needy out there. You attract to your being. So when you get into these mid frequencies, you start to attract people around you. However, right, there is a limitation to that, right? Because when we're at the we they're still at the lower level. There's still sort of a little bit of an agenda, and sometimes we's could create some factions, right? So people can start to, in the we, it's like it's sort of well, they're not us and this and that, and you could create that, or you could just be so focused on your own family that you don't care what's happening in the rest of the world. And so the we is a great place to go because you do create some self-mastery. However, that's all based on our self-perception. And quite often what happens is that if anything threatens that we're going to drop back down to the me again, It's like, it's almost like snakes and ladders. No matter how many these things come down, you're always dropping back down there, and that's totally normal to do, right? However, when we talk about self-transcendence, which is really when Joe Dispenza talks about, is that we break the habit of being ourselves. This is where we get into this level 6 energy. And what's really interesting, this level 6 energy is where we experience joy because we start to discover the us. This is where we realize that by me helping Martin, I'm helping myself. Nobody ever loses because we're all interconnected. And when we do that, we experience some synthesis where we see that we're all a lot more powerful together than we are separate. And that we're able to appropriately apply some of the knowledge that we have in our lives and in our group's lives to be able to create that joy that comes from being part of things, right? Because we talk about the two things that humans love that they have a need, right? That need to be seen, heard, and have a sense of love and belonging. The one thing that happens is that when we're up in these energy levels, we need to really be at a high level of consciousness. So this is where it's a high level of consciousness where it's about being. It's not about what you need to do, but who do you need to be an effective contributor of the community? And there's also a lot of inner faith in your own belief in what you're doing. So, and this also, there's no ego in there. You're actually, when you're at this level, you're not judging or labeling things as good or bad. You're really in there for the experience, and the us, it can be a really powerful place. However, this is the thing that me and Bruce had a discussion about. I said, I've been noticing this me to the we to the us, but he said when he actually did this, he was seen as sort of a me to the we to the me. And this is the missing part that I think is really crucial to building a community. Because what happens is that these 6 energy levels, they're like 6 levels of consciousness, 6 levels of awareness, 6 levels of engagement, and 6 levels of confidence. If you were driving a sports car, these 6 energy levels would be like your gears, right? Because energy is neither good nor bad. It's more effective, less effective. So what happens is that when you realize that if you were in a sports car and you had the 6 gears, you would know that each gear serves its purpose. However, when you're in the 7th level, you realize you are the driver. Right. And what happens is that in a community, there's the community goal, the us, but it can only be achieved by each individual person in the community taking responsibility for becoming the me, not the self-perception me, but your authentic me, right? That person that observes you having this human experience. It's a part that has a desire to show up in your highest, best version of yourself, most engaged. Because I did a talk, I think in 2016 or 17 down in Denver for the Colorado Avalanche. And I remember we got to present in the Denver Broncos media room. And it was like a full-size theater. And I remember standing in front of this big theater, and in the back in big letters was "Be accountable." And really, when you really think about this, in order to really build a community or a success posse, right? Each individual person has to be accountable to themselves and to the members of the community, right? And how do you be accountable? Well, first of all, to be able to break the habit of being yourself, right? To be able to take whatever is necessary to raise to the level of consciousness where it's not about, again, there's a lot of non-judgmental where you're passionate about what you're doing, because that's the level where creation happens. In sports, we call it the zone. at this level here, you can create, observe, and experience anything you desire as quickly as you believe possible. So in order to have a really effective community, each member has to have an intention, a desire. They have to have a willingness to surrender and also believe, right? If you've got a group of people that have those 4 attributes, you have a growing, thriving community that is not focused on the outcome, because the outcomes will take care of themselves, but you will have a group where people are thriving in the moment. They are loving what they do and who they're doing it with. And this here is really that whole point of our own self-realization, getting to the point where by me doing the work to get to the authentic part, I'm going to contribute to the us, because I'm not just going to be sitting there. Lisa said leaders make leaders. Leadership is that interaction where influence happens, right? We need to influence ourselves to be accountable to ourselves, to take the actions that we need. And then we need to be able to influence others to take the actions that they need to take, not control, influence. And how we do that is because when we get to that level, we're at a very high level of frequency. And at that high frequency, we attract opportunities. We're tapping into the creation energy. And that's where, as a community, everything becomes possible. So that's my contribution for today. And those are my thoughts. And again, thank you for being here. And I'm thank you for everybody taking the time to listen to what I had to say to an amazing human being. And this person is from down under, as they like to say. I'm trying to sound somewhat hip here. And Martin Ball, he's passionately motivated by this desire to use his own adversity to support and encourage, making a positive impact in your life and the life of others. So we talk about that level 4 energy, right? He really wants to make a difference. He's a man inspired by the cause rather than the applause, right? So again, we're talking about people that can see beyond their own ego, right? It's not about the applause. A lot of this things I'm talking about is people have actually said that about him. He hasn't said that about himself. And the one thing that is really great about him, he omits the gratitude. He leads and inspires those around him. He sees the best in people, and he does his best to extract that from people, right? And the thing about him, he's a master communicator. If you've ever been on any of the funnels, and every time I watch him, I always think, man, this dude's a handsome dude, and he talks well, right? So again, it's he's a master communicator, and he has the ability to listen and convey information in a way that's understood. So he gets to the heart of what people really want to hear, and I love that about him. And the other thing as well too is he's actually great to be around. If I haven't had as much time to be around him, but every time I have, it's always a joy. He's like I was teasing him earlier before we started that his last name is a ball. Every time you're around him, you feel like you're having a ball. So he's living up to his name. And so if you want integrity, inspiring leadership, authenticity, transparency, service, commitment, and most importantly, a friendship, Martin is the delivery guy in that. He's definitely the guy, and I really look forward to hearing what he has to say. So Martin, without further ado, the baton is yours.
Yeah, wow. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Russ. It's really empowering and inspiring to hear those words from, as you mentioned, from other people. There's many of us can blow our own trumpet, but to have a community who are blowing their own trumpets towards you is absolutely a beautiful sound to witness and hear. And I really want to just acknowledge, as you mentioned before, thank you to everybody who's with us right now, and thank you to yourself and Russ for choosing to invite me and to be here with Lisa as well. What's been shared so far has been absolutely incredible, and it's really set a very strong foundation for myself and Russ. I'm really excited to hear what Russ is going to be delivering very shortly. When we mentioned around this topic, it made me just take a moment to step back and go, okay, well, community shifted a lot for me over the years. There's been quite a bit that I've watched. I've been in communities where it's been very much about the applause. It's been very much about take and really step on people to get to where you want to get to. And that really, I was in a situation around about 2018 where I had stepped into a community. I'd watched them for 14 months. I was paying like $99 every month and watching to see what they were about. And I felt that I was impressed with what I was seeing from a results point. But it was only when I decided to get in and I was instantly put into the leadership community because of what I was doing, I started to see the lack of integrity through there. And I had a decision to make then. Do I continue on this path of going against my values, who I am, and not showing up authentically in order to get the success that most of society desires? Or do I stand true to my values and hold integrity, knowing that the way that I'm choosing to show up in the world is one that it will be from a true leadership level? And I decided to walk away. And I was questioned quite strongly about that because of the influence that I had in that community. But it helped me actually set a stronger foundation to build upon for myself and for where we were going to go, not knowing anything about NG back then. And when I got introduced to NG, it was actually from an angle of one of my businesses. I could come in and just sell a lot of product and make a fortune. And I remember hearing that and thinking to myself, doesn't align with me. That doesn't make sense to me. But what I realized was that was the person's value that was putting it on me. And I had the opportunity, fortunately, to sit down and speak to Mark. And the first question I asked him when I had that opportunity was, what is the vision? Where do you want to go? Because he was communicating with me through the conversation that he had had with my sponsor. And I said, you may as well be speaking Chinese to me because I don't hear anything that you're saying right now. And when he opened up and started sharing his vision, and we went onto the website and I asked him to explain why for every single part of the website, the why behind everything, I was able then to tap into that, where he was going and what his vision truly was. And I was able to step away and say, I align with this. This is where my vision can be like the synchronicity between our visions, and together we can actually collaborate to achieve and support each other, but not only each other, more people around the world. And I feel that a lot of people are very good at saying these things, but at the end of the day, it's actions that speak louder than words in regards to where we go. I'm a great believer in the power of thought and the frequency behind words, but where people are at, and social media today is a very, very good way to find out about somebody. And one of the things that I always say to the community members is, if you want to find somebody who is a strong leader, or you view as a strong leader, don't just go and look at what they're posting. Go and look at what the people who are commenting are saying about them, because that's a good indication as to what the value is, how people are resonating, and go deeper on a deeper level to find out more information. HR do it in companies, so we may as well do it. But when we start looking at communities, there's a few aspects of it that I've learned over the years that really have helped make a difference. And when I sat there and I said, okay, well, this was before NG, I realized that I built such a strong brand in one of my businesses that I was defined by this brand, but it wasn't me. It was a part of me. It was something that excited me, but it wasn't me. And I realized that there was so much more value that I had to offer. Therefore, I needed to create a space where I could grow, but I could grow around others who were willing to grow. And through their growth, through their commitment, through their desire, through their focus, through their determination, through their persistence, it was going to overflow to me. And I sat there and I said, what's the intention for this community? And I think it's a great place, even if people have never started a community, whether they have, to maybe go back and say, what was the intention? Am I going in that same direction towards where I wanted to get to? And when I created the intention behind the group, it was really to bring people together who had a common desire to achieve personal growth and share their value with others around the world. That was simply what it was. And then from there, I'd looked at, well, probably a lot of people out there doing that already. You know, why would somebody align with myself to start growing a community when maybe they're already a part of Bob Proctor's community, like Lisa? And there was an element of, you know, with them, what's in it for me from their side, with why should they be involved? But what I realized was a lot of this comes around to, as you said before, around that authenticity of showing up. You know, it's actually just being the best version of ourselves, letting that overflow. And through showing who I am, through showing the core values, it gave permission to other people to step into that space. It gave permission for other people to realize that it's not about the business, it's not about the income. It's really about showing up and being of value and being what we would class, or somebody who's maybe, let's say, conscious would class as a decent human being, doing unto others as you would have done unto you. And through that process, it's helped other people step into a space where they realize that they're not going to get trampled on, where they realize they're actually being seen, they're being heard, and it's irrelevant of where they're at in their life, because naturally there's different energies. We've gone through it within the community. What's your color, what's your personality? And some people are intimidated by the reds and can't wait to meet the yellows and whatever it would be, and they're flowing through there. And you go, well, the thing is, we all serve a purpose for each other. Sometimes we're rocking, and like right now, I'm in a very strong masculine state. It may not come across like that right now, but certainly am. And I got on the mastermind recently with the team, and they were really helping nurture me back into more of a balance. And that's what I needed for that call, to get the communication across effectively, but also to receive what was going on in my life. Now, if I had chosen to come from a place of from competition, I can do this on my own, I would never be receiving that next level of growth to take me up, as you said, up that energetic chart, to start realizing, to receive that high level of consciousness. Whether I slip down a bit through something that happens, at least I've gone up to that and I know how to return to that point. And that was through the power of community. So when I've gone through and I've looked at that and I've gone, okay, well, if I'm expressing my core values and I can help other people understand that, through me choosing to show up, that's helping them, and we organically create that ripple effect, because it truly isn't about me. But as we know, everybody on the plane that's involved in the plane getting off the runway, it's still, there's pilots at the front doing all the controls, but it relies on everybody else. And to get a community going initially does take at least one or two people to start coming together and really putting that effort and energy in. And what I've realized is that when people choose to be open-minded and step into this and communicate effectively, which is a big one that we focus on, but communicate effectively with openness, with people ready to receive, with no level of judgment, and themselves being open from a place of respect, from a place of truly wanting to make a difference in their lives for, as you said before, the cause and not the applause, then what ends up taking place is the people who started at the beginning end up being met by everybody else. They don't end up, nobody's lower than anybody, everybody's equal, and everybody's given that platform to raise up to, and everybody who's on that higher platform, let's just say from a point of being able to visually see it, all those people on that platform have got their hands down and saying, come up, we are here to support you all the way. You will not get a nosebleed stepping up this high. Everything is here and to support you and get you to where you want. And I believe that that level of expectation for new members coming in is important, because expectation is often where relationships fall down. If it's communicated effectively, relationships build on a strong foundation. And that power of then helping people understand that the brand is the most powerful thing that they own. And if they align with what the community is about, the community vision, aligning their vision in with that community vision and being led together, like we mentioned before about leadership, leadership's very simple. Just lead people. Like, that's it. Leadership to me is very simple. Just lead people. If you're clear, as you said, you've got a burning desire, you have faith or you believe, and you're persistent, and you're doing it from a place where you're respecting everybody else, I believe there's only one thing that's going to happen, and people are going to look and be inspired and say, I want to go in the direction that that person's going. And when we're turning around or we're going down and saying, hey, come on, come with me. If you've fallen off the bus, come on, get back on. There's plenty of room here. People are naturally, organically want to join. So this is, and I'm conscious of the time. I keep just flicking back to the time. But this has been some of the things that were coming up today for me when I was thinking about it. And a lot's already been shared from some very strong foundational angles. I just feel that community, for those of us who are looking to develop beyond where we currently are, not only in this lifetime, but even when we pass, this is the great place to be doing it and to be a part of something that is truly going to impact the world on such an incredible scale, probably more than we actually can understand and fathom right now. So thank you for the space and time to share.
Thank you, Martin. That was incredible. I love the thing that you could be open about, even your own energy and how you needed to get out of your masculine energy a little bit more into more of the nurturing, and that whole thing about it's really great listening to you talk about how you're able to become an effective influencer, right? Because if you just stay in your masculine energy all the time, you're gonna fall into a tendency to want to control people, and I love that. And I also, speaking of that, I just wanted to thank everybody who has done the poll, which is really interesting because it really kind of ties in, because we were talking about this poll that we had, is that what are the important aspects of community building? 79% of you believe that trust is the most important. And then right behind it is connection and effective communication, which is really interesting, because as I'm introducing my next guest, not only did he have one of the sexiest voices that I've ever heard, right? Russ is amazing. He's been around for a while. He's a legend in the network marketing arena. Even back, I guess, back in 1995, he was basically featured in the Success magazine of Working at Home, and he was, I guess they called him one of the top 24 home-based business entrepreneurs in America. But you wouldn't know it by talking to him today. And I think that one of the things that really happens that's when you meet Russ is that I always talk about that fear and trust right at teeter-totter. When fear goes up, trust goes down. When trust goes up, fear goes down. And one of the things that Russ has the ability to do is to get people to trust him. You just, when you're listening to him, you just trust this guy. He's just like, whether it's, and how he also communicates is also very unique, and that he makes it really simple for you to understand. He's very much, again, has the same gift that Martin has, and Lisa, and all great effective leaders of communities have, is that ability to communicate at the level that people can understand and want to follow. And with Russ, the things that have actually really blown me away as well too, is that he's at a point in his life where he could have just kind of sat back and, just kind of thought to himself, I worked hard all my life, I've achieved all this, I just want to sit back and not have to be in the rat race anymore. But Russ has a legacy. He has a desire to make 1,000 millionaires. And of those 1,000 millionaires, the expectation is that they be benevolent with some of that money. And he can tell you what the percentage is, but here's a guy that's looking for not just what he can get anymore. It's about what he's going to leave as a legacy. And I know that every time we hear Russ, every time he speaks, I really consider it a privilege, because it's kind of like in a lot of communities where the elders pass on the wisdom. I always feel like when I listen to Russ, he's passing on through his stories, through his personalities, passing on wisdom to those that can really comprehend what that wisdom is. So I just wanted to really say that it's really a privilege to have Russ here speak with us. He speaks with a man from experience, knowledge, and just in a heart as big as Texas. So without further ado, I just want to pass the baton over to Russ Devan.
Thank you so much, Walter, and I really appreciate you not setting people's expectations too high. I got to tell you, I am so honored to be in this company, and I have something to say about everyone, but the one I didn't get to say anything about was your last speaker, Martin Ball. Not that he needs anything from me. I mean, you already got him. But for a man roughly 28 years my junior, I have learned so much from him. And I found myself just fascinated by what he was putting out and what he was putting forth, and the thought that went into it. And truly, he is the reason why I got interested in Noble Goldman. I came to Noble Goldman because it was represented to me as a community, there's that word, a community that would appreciate my training. And selfishly, I had the thought, okay, well, that's one way to get where I'm going, a whole bunch of people to be interested in my training. And I decided the best way to explore it would be to join a mastermind group. And how fortunate I was to pick Martin's, because I realized after just one time that that's not why I was there. I wasn't there to meet people to get interested in my training. I was there to learn. I was there to meet people that could teach me. I was there to meet people who would become my friends, who were in a community that I was being invited into. And I got to tell you, it made me see a possibility for my life's purpose, for my goal that I didn't see before. So there's been a common theme here today, talking about community and Noble Goldman, and I just wanted to acknowledge Martin, because he's an amazing individual, and he's just one of the amazing individuals that are here that you'll meet. Now, there isn't much to say, but I'll embellish a little bit on my thoughts. But I want to start with a quote, and it's one of my very favorite quotes. It's from George Bernard Shaw. And Shaw said that this is the true joy in life: to be used for a purpose recognized by oneself as a mighty one, a force of nature, instead of a selfish little clod of grievances and ailments complaining that the universe will not dedicate itself to making you happy. It's my opinion that my life belongs to the community. And as long as I am here, I will do whatever I can to serve it. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die, because the harder I work, the more I live. Life is not a brief candle to me. It's more like a splendid torch that I have hold of for the moment. And I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. I don't know a better definition of community than that. I really don't. Now, my experience is that all our lives we learn in our culture. Lisa, what a great word to bring out. In our culture, whatever that culture happens to be, about community and what communities are. And if you look back on your life, I think you'll see all the different kinds of communities you've participated in, even if you didn't frame them up that way. Okay. I mean, for the last 40 years, I've had kind of a love-hate relationship with a system of distribution known as network marketing. But it was after 10 years of exploring that community that I saw that there was something that wasn't working. And by exploring that and seeing not what was bad or what was wrong, but what wasn't working, it gave me the impetus to create something to make a difference in that community, called my work, Success by Design, on training. You might find that's kind of a weird thing to take on, but you see, that's how things unfold. And that community, the network marketing community, if you want to frame it up as one, was responsible for me teaching me about personal development. I never would have known it had I not met unbelievable people who had come from nothing. One of my first inspirations was a young man 2 years younger than I was, no college education, previous experience in business was driving a forklift in a Hunt's tomato plant in California. And at the time that I met him, I was in the top 1% of a Fortune 500 company sales. And this guy made more in 1 month than I did in an entire year. And he was educated and eloquent and unbelievable, all due to someone who inspired him to work on himself. So I learned about the personal development community, which has landed me here. Okay, so now I want to talk about another community, because I think of this, and Mark Santos, who's the one whose vision Noble Goldman and the Vault is, relates and has related what we're building and creating here to an ecosystem. So I want to ask you something. Is the animal kingdom a community? Is the plant kingdom a community? Well, of course it is. I say it is. And here's the interesting thing about it. Something that I learned just last week from someone who has a whole new approach and style, which she learned from someone else, about working with animals. You know, we human beings tend to think we're the center of the universe. Everything's always all about us. And the one thing I know from being a scientist, I use that word broadly, I don't have many degrees in science, but I consider myself certainly an amateur scientist in some areas. But the one thing that I've learned is that human beings, this is my opinion, so this isn't a fact. One thing I've learned is that human beings have unlimited capacity for growing because they can think. But as soon as they stop thinking, or as soon as they start thinking that they're the end and they're the center of everything, that's where the trouble begins. And if you look around you, we're just a blip on the scale of time on this earth. And we're just a part of an ecosystem that I would say doesn't think. I know that sounds strange, but Buckminster Fuller, a great mind and philosopher, responsible for the geodesic dome. Once he discovered the power of words, he stopped speaking for a year. Buckminster Fuller said animals are the only creatures that don't work for a living. They don't. They just be. And we hold animals. When I say hold, I mean, like human beings generally hold animals as thinking things. They don't think things. They don't. I mean, we don't know that they don't. I mean, I guess they could, but I say they operate on feeling. So if that's the truth, or if that's a possibility, as I like to frame things, if that's so, then then they're guided by something else that I think is truer, more reliable than thinking. Okay. Walter said so eloquently earlier that we're not our feelings, we're not our thoughts, we are, that's something separate from us. And it's important to see that, because we're actually more than that. We're more than our mind, but the mind is a slave which gives us orders. So to get back to my point, the ecosystem works quite well. Why? Why does it work so well? Because every member of the community gives to another member of the community. It all is interwoven. Contribution is the core of life, in my opinion. We are here to make a difference in our community, for other people, for other human beings. That's where we draw our greatest strength, is feeling. And guess what we get for that? We get noticed. We get important. We have our peace in life when we make a difference for someone else. So it's really funny, because people have it as selfish or selfless. And guess what? They're two sides of the same coin. It's impossible to be just one, because each thing in the universe has the other side to it. So being selfless is selfish. And I say, so what? So what? If everything is selfless, and if everything works because it makes a difference for something else, and that's what it draws life from, isn't that the example of how life on this planet works? I mean, it's one that that's my interpretation. That's what I hold. Now, there's all kinds of things in the world going on now, and there's something missing. I learned a long time ago from one of my great mentors and coaches to not limit myself to, okay, if it's not working, something's wrong. Something's wrong, must be bad, must be wrong. That doesn't work. Well, maybe it just doesn't work. Not bad, not wrong, just doesn't work. So in a different, and I think a more empowering interpretation is, if something doesn't work, what's missing? So clearly, the conversation in the world, in my opinion, isn't working. I'm not being political. I'm just saying, look around. All right. So my opinion is that what's missing is communication. Have we talked about that in the last hour? Connection. Have we talked about that in the last hour? Contribution. Have we talked about that in the last hour? Yeah, all of those. Do you know why? Because that's what community is. Contribution, connection, showing up, being heard, being there, being. And you know what? I say, in this world, people are shut down, shut up, disconnected. I'm not going to get into the whys. I don't really care. What I want to know is what's missing. So what's missing is people being noticed, people being heard, people being connected. And you know what? What a great way to live your life, making a difference there, just there, doing that. Okay. So I don't have the type of presentation that you've been given today, which were just, I'm in awe. Remind me not to go last again, but it's like, for me, if you add everything up together, it still comes to the same place. It all arrives in the same place, that we are feeling beings that need to contribute and need to be heard. And when we show up, we get our life for it. That's what we get. We get our life. And yes, there's all kinds of different things that fall under the category of what's a good life. But the level of eloquence, the level of humility that was represented here today, I'm just in awe of it. And I'm so glad and so blessed to be here. So I started this pretty much with a quote. I'm going to finish with one. I want to share with you a favorite poem of mine. And I think you'll get the significance from what I've said about creating a community, who we are, the piece that we are of that, the part that we play. And well, I'll just say it. It goes like this. So imagine before I speak, a medieval time and a royal feast. The feast was done. The king sought some new sport to banish care. And to his jester cried, "Sir Fool, kneel now and make for us a prayer." The jester doffed his cap and bells and stood the mocking court before. They couldn't see the bitter frown beneath the painted grin he wore. He bowed his head and bent his knee upon the monarch's silken stool. His pleading voice arose, "O Lord, be merciful to me, a fool." No pity, Lord, could change the heart from red with wrong to white as wool. The rod must heal the sin, but Lord, be merciful to me, a fool. 'Tis not by guilt the onward sweep of truth and right, O Lord, we stay. 'Tis by our follies that so long the earth we hold from heaven away. These clumsy feet stuck in the mire go crushing blossoms without end. These hard, well-meaning hands we thrust among the heartstrings of a friend. The ill-timed truth we might have kept, who knows how sharp it pierced and stung? The word we had not sense to say, who knows how grandly it had rung? Our faults no tenderness should ask, the chastening stripes must cleanse them all. But for our blunders, oh, in shame, before the eyes of heaven we fall. Earth bears no balsam for mistakes. Men crown the knave and scourge the tool that did his will. But thou, O Lord, be merciful to me, a fool. The room was still. The king arose and sought his gardens cool, and walked apart and murmured low, "Be merciful to me, a fool." Thank you. I'm going to turn it back to you, Walter.
That was wonderful. That was I love, you know what I love? I love that you know that by heart. And I think that that's something that speaks highly of you. You're a person that you wear your life in your heart, and it shows. And I think that's why people trust you a lot, Russ. And I really do appreciate. And then one thing I do appreciate too, Russ, is the how you brought up, even in our poll, we talked about different aspects of community and the contribution part. Thank you for reminding of that. Reminding all of us of that. And just, you were just eloquent, and you're always a presence, and thank you for that. Thank you to Martin for his thing as well, and for Lisa. So what we're going to do now, for just 10 minutes, we're going to open this up to a roundtable, and then any of the attendees, as you're listening to us talk, feel free to raise your hand, and then once we're done this roundtable, we'll allow you to ask a question if you'd like. I'll elevate you to a panelist so you can actually do it in person. You could ask any of us a question. But right now, for 5-10 minutes, I'd love to just open it up. Lisa, you can unmute yourself. Martin, and any thoughts about what anybody else has said that kind of caught your interest?
Wow. Really, everything. Community is made up of many things, not just one or two things. And each one of us brought something very different to the table. And that is community in itself, is bringing all these different things together. Because often we don't see these things, or we don't know them, or we don't have experience, or whatever. So just listening to all of you bringing something to, and feeling it deep in my heart as the truth for each one of you as you spoke, that this is just yet another part of what makes a community so successful. And there are other things that we haven't talked about today, because there's a time limit on it, but just feeling that knowing deep in my heart, with everything that has been said today, that this is the right place to be right now.
Thank you, Lisa. The one thing I want to throw back again, this idea of contribution, it's really so important, because you'll find, even as Martin was talking about, the people come in with the whiffum, right? What's in it for me? And what I've noticed over the years is that for those people that can't seem to get past the whiffum, well, at some point disengage. Because what I've noticed is that if people are growing on a personal level, or their finances are growing, there's usually something in it for them. And then they can make that raise to the point where they get to that higher level of consciousness where they want to contribute. The minute you get to that energy where you're contributing, that whole thing about feeling seen, feeling heard, and having a sense of community comes in. But if you can't make that shift to that contribution, it's a matter of time before those people don't stick around. And I know that a lot of people have had experiences where they tried to build their little network and it's fallen apart. And I just want to tell you that you're not alone. I've been learning as I've been going through here as well. I'm in the process of creating my Growth Seekers community, which is all based on the Growth Seekers Mastermind. And even in that Growth Seekers Mastermind, I used to have everybody would take turns doing it and what have you. And I realized that really is those are my peeps, the ones that are seeking growth. And so that's what I'm doing. And I'm also getting more coaches involved, right? So I love the contribution, because I know that a lot of coaches have a sense of wanting to contribute to the world, and also not only them, also people that are in network marketing. A lot of them got into that because they have a product or service that they feel strongly about, and they want to contribute that. So again, it's thank you, Russ, for bringing up the concept of contribution, because that's one in the polls. There wasn't any of that. Trust and effective communication were the two big things. And also the one thing I want to say, Martin, is expectations. Accountability was one of the lowest rated things. Nobody likes to be held accountable. So I'll leave that to see what anybody else has to say on that.
The accountability one is it's an interesting one, because when we shift it over to the expectation, I feel that some people, they know what they want, but they don't communicate it effectively, or they're scared of communicating it for the fear that it's a demand that they may not, the other person on the other side may not be able to fulfill that. However, one of the biggest things that came up on that poll was trust. And if we look at the process of what's happening in today's world, we're connecting more so online. We're connecting with people that we don't know, but we may have a common interest in, let's say, the personal growth space. So the fact that we've got an alignment based on a value is a great foundation to build upon, but we still have that resistance because of we don't trust, we don't know who this person is. I was brought up to give trust and let it be taken, because there's plenty of trust within me. But in this world that we live in, there's a lot of charlatans. especially in the online side. So the thing that I've said to people is, come on in, because no matter how long I talk to you about this and tell you how fantastic it is, you will only get an intellectual understanding as of the value. But when you come in and you choose to get yourself involved and listen in and be a part of the conversations, you will then start to get a spiritual understanding. And that is something that I cannot explain to you. You have to feel it yourself. When we spoke earlier on around the soul of NG, of the community, when you step into that space and you open up, if you, and this is going back to the expectation, when I'm very clear in regards to what people can expect, I create a level of faith within them that when they step into that, what they are receiving is exactly what I said they were going to get, which then builds trust. If I tell them that I am going to get X, Y, and Z, and they step in and they don't get X, Y, and Z, then trust is never going to have a foundation to build upon. And that's been the key for how I've chosen to come across and how I've looked at things and gone from the moment that I connect with the person. What is the whole journey for the customer? If we just would call them a customer for now, just for ease terms. And I saw a question come up that's relatable to this, but I won't dive into it now. But that flow, if the journey is one that is constantly being nurtured throughout and everything that's communicated is delivered, there's only one thing that's going to come from that, and that's confidence, that's faith, that's a belief and trust, which is going to create stronger connection, which then is going to evolve into a deeper level of collaboration, service, value, and contribution around the world, in my opinion.
An ecosystem.
Yeah, you know what, Martin? No one throws me into automatic listening like you do. I mean, I'm seriously, you just touched on so much. You said a huge mouthful, and it's unbelievable to hear. And the connections that are here. First of all, I want to throw this piece out. I think that our culture, to go back to Lisa, maybe all cultures, are rife with false beliefs. And they become cultural trances. That's a word that I learned a long time ago. Like, that's something where everybody kind of accepts something as true, but they really don't think about it. Like, one of those cultural trances is we get what we want. I don't believe that necessarily we get what we want. Some people say we get what we expect. Well, that would go to setting up your expectations, wouldn't it? And being responsible for your own expectations. Oh my God, the word responsibility. Responsible for your own expectations instead of allowing someone else to be responsible for your expectations. When I set off on this journey to create a company called Success by Design, it was because one of the things I noticed was missing is people being willing to be responsible for their own success. Accountability is an interesting thing. Why do you think people avoid it? It's because we avoid responsibility. If we're responsible for our expectations, what happens if we don't get our expectations? Guess what that says? So people don't want that. People want to set it up so they don't have to be responsible for their expectations. They don't have to be responsible for their success. They don't even have to define it. That way they'll never be responsible for it, and they can blame it on something else. So, like, you are so on the money with how people operate and what there is to see around it. Like, how about this? What if you draw a distinction between wanting something and being committed to it? That might sound subtle, but when you think about your life, you will do things when you're committed to it that you will not do if you just want it. Maybe you find out, I didn't really want that. It's like Aesop had the fox and the grapes, right? I mean, that was, grapes were probably sour, So it's like our life works like that. And it's beautiful to see that, especially for something like that to come out here. Because when people begin to understand that if they set their commitments, if they set their expectations up in a way that they're willing to be responsible for them, they can bring miracles into their life and miracles into other people's lives. And that's the most important thing about community, isn't it? It gets back to contribution. I didn't say any of that. Martin did. Okay. But it was what I was going, I said, when you talk, I go, absolutely. Yeah. And so thank you. I just had to throw that out there.
And Russ, I really love that, because what really came out for me is what I've started to really notice is that a lot of people are making decisions based on fear or desire. And fear, when you're doing something out of fear, it's an obligation. And when you're doing something just out of desire, it's a wish.
Right.
And so I think that's one of the things that at fear and desire. And I think that this thing that we're talking about, which is commitment and accountability, it's really about showing up, because nothing happens outside of this thing called the now. Right. And the fact that our life to this point, where we are financially, where we are marital status, where we are physical, everything is an accumulation of all the choices that we've made up to this point. In order to do that, we have to show up, right? It's like that old thing, life isn't as personal as we think it is. That's why we have these drops into the poor me or the angry, because we're not getting our piece of the pie. But when we show up consciously, right? It's like this idea of loving your neighbor as yourself. Well, do you even love yourself? And how do you love yourself? Right? Self-care is not selfishness, it's self-love. And if you're going to lead others, are you leading yourself? Are you influencing yourself? And so I love this thing, because really, when you think about it, are we committed and are we accountable to us first?
Yeah.
Because
being responsible. That's exactly right.
Yeah. You can't go out and call other people to do something you yourself don't want to do or not willing to do, right? If it's just a desire, it's just a wish. And if if you're just doing things out of fear, it's just obligation. And both of those are not sustainable, because after a while, it's interesting. I have a mentor who's a grief counselor, and he said, the hardest thing to get over is not a person that passed away. It's a loss of your dream. And when your dream is just a wish and you lose that, you lose hope. And then you just go settling. And what I love, what Martin's said and what Russ was able to eloquently translate is that this is an important factor in community building. And it really comes back to Lisa, right? We're not looking to commit. We're not looking to have followers. We want to create other leaders, because in the end, yes, it's the us, but in the end, it's the me, right? Are you going to eventually live your reason for being here? Right? Are you going to be able to, when Russ says, right, he wants a friend of mine used to always say it's squeezing the juice, right? Have we squeezed all the juice out of our lives, right? And so thank you everybody here on this round table. And I thought that was an incredible point, Martin and Russ and Lisa. So now I'd like to open this up for any questions from any of our attendees. We've got.
Let me make one quick comment on what you just said, very quickly.
No worries.
I have a distinction between a dream and a vision.
Sure.
Okay. And the distinction is, a dream is something that you want and you dream about and you fantasize. A vision is something that you're willing to be responsible for, or you're committed to being responsible for. And that's why visions come true and dreams generally don't.
Wow. That's profound. Thank you. So now that we've actually lubed up our attendees here, so if anybody that would like to ask a question of any of the panelists, or you have an insight that's come up for you, we want to give you the opportunity right now to actually to say it. I know that Jane Jane, it's just a big wow. Russ, she's there.
We do have a question there, Walter.
Sure.
What is the biggest challenge you see ahead for us with NG, and how will we rise above it?
Oh, just very quickly, the biggest challenge we will always have is what Martin so beautifully expressed, is expectation. And as long as we keep our expectation, I don't want to say real, because, you know, I'm a big believer in creating something different. But one of the biggest challenges we've got is people have a different expectation of what is able to be provided. And this is what Martin was talking about. So yes, there are other challenges that we have, but if the expectation is set properly at the beginning, then we will overcome everything else. Yeah, we're new, we're going to have challenges, of course we are, that's part of growth. But if people have the expectation that we are pioneers, we're coming in as creators, we're working things out as we go along, then people will come in and get involved. But when they come in expecting this, and this to be in place, because it will be in time, but it's not there yet, then we get disappointment, frustration, and we all know how that goes. So for me, expectation is the setting of expectation, no matter what other issues are going on. When the expectation is set effectively, then we will rise over whatever else comes up.
Thank you,
I
Lisa.
have something I'd like to say about this. I personally feel, going a lot toward what Lisa just said, is the people that will become part of this, who get it, who really see that this is something, having or teaching maybe people to frame what we're building with Noble Goldman in the vault as a possibility rather than a position. Because what society listens to is it right or wrong? I touched on this before. Is it good or bad? Will it work or not? Everything is a position. Oh, I joined this. This is going to be that. This is like this. And the moment you take a position that it is something, it calls forth opposition. But when you create it as a possibility, there's no resistance to possibility. When you stop saying this is something that's getting done over here and I'm a part of it, and instead realize that you're not just a part of it, you are it. You're part of the ecosystem. You are co-creating it. A woman said to me a few weeks ago, she said, you know, I just got here. I don't feel like this is really mine. And I said, well, the moment you got here, the moment you enrolled, the moment you decided you wanted to be a part of it, you didn't just become part of it, you became it, because it became different, adding you to it. So if you see that you are responsible for its outcome, you are responsible for how it lands with other people and what we create. And that gives us the kind of internal fire that I think we need to communicate this as a powerful possibility. I love possibility. I just love it because it doesn't have any limitations. It doesn't have any resistance. When you speak it that way, people are like, oh yeah, maybe. So that's
Awesome.
my thought.
Thanks, Russ and Lisa. We have a question from panel here from Wolfgang, and then we have Kasha. So Wolfgang says, what do you say about the concept of consistency is the new currency, connecting us back from take it now to rebuild a tribe where consistency was an organic fact which inflicted natural trust?
Boy, those are Walter and Martin questions if I ever heard them.
I'm kind of like, hang on, let me go and read that again. So if you want to go, Walter, I'll...
Yeah, I think the thing is that consistency, the one thing that I notice in performance is that one of the challenges that I have with a lot of young athletes is that they can get into that flow, into that zone for a game. They could go out and score 4 goals, and then for the next 5 games, they do nothing. A lot of these scouts are always looking for the consistency in young people. And what that is really is about what Noble Goldman teaches in the success formula, right? And having those rituals and routines that get you prepped to be able to be consistent, to be at a high energy, a high level of engagement, high creativity. So I think that that's where the idea of the consistency is the new currency, is that if you and just even for ourselves, I mean, if Martin or Russ or even Lisa, if one day you showed up with your team, you were kind of a little quiet and timid, the next time you're controlling and wanting to, right? I think that we as individuals there's a thing called entrainment. There's two energy levels. Whichever energy is more intense and consistent will entrain the other ones up. So that as we learn to elevate our level of consciousness, we will become the tuning fork for those around us. And I know that for a lot of people, when they come on any of my groups, whether it's a masterclass, they kind of know what to expect. They expect the fact that it's not going to be perfect and that sometimes things happen. And I think the odd time I've maybe sworn or whatever, like they just know that I don't take myself that serious, but I do take my role seriously and wanting to influence people to be more of who they truly are. So I think the consistency is really going to come from the leaders understanding that as they're consistent, so will their group be consistent, right? And
well,
in the way that
yeah, excuse me.
No worries. Russ, you had something to say?
I wanted to say that it's interesting that you bring up consistency, because we have two contributors here, Jim Packard and George Campbell, who wrote a book called The Consistency Chain. And they are faculty and presenters in the vault with their masterclass coming up on consistency. So awesome. Once again, it just like plays right into what we're building and creating. Awesome. Just wanted to mention it.
Awesome. And I hope that someone answers the question. Kasia, if you can unmute yourself.
You know, it's interesting how people are mistaking dreams, desires, visions with the fear, how they mix it with the fear. And then I'm working with some people and this is the fear of missing out that, you know, I'm going to make it, I'm going to have enough money at this point, and, you know, all of those things. It is interesting how it's hard to kind of inspire those people to drop the fear. The fear is managing them so harshly that it's I'm not gonna say impossible, but it's close to impossible sometimes to to show them that the way it's like, you know, just to soften a little bit and turn it into your dream, and to a dream that you believe that it's achievable. So are there any secrets about helping those people?
Sasha, just to be clear about your question. So what would be the question to the panel?
I think I got it, Walter.
But you got it? Okay, no, I think Russ has it.
Yeah,
okay.
I think I do, Kasia. So you're asking what you can do to support someone, tell me if I'm wrong, to support someone when they see something they want to go for, their dream or whatever it is, and, you know, but they're afraid, you know, they're holding back for whatever is going on in their life or whatever they've experienced before. First of all, am I right about that as being your concern? Okay, so here's my thought. This is just a possibility, okay? Here's what isn't in most people's life, or as they see it, is they don't have a choice. It's, I'd like to do this, but I can't. I'd like to do this, but this is in the way. I'd like to do this, but that is in the way. One of my coaches told me one time something very simple, but it really was profound to me. He said, you know, life is like a bear. Either you're eating the bear or the bear's eating you. Everybody has a choice about everything. Okay. So our job as a coach, as a sponsor, as a friend, is to listen to people's concerns and see if we can hear where they're not at choice, because we can't do it for them. We'd like to tell them they can. We can cheerlead them, go, 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 go. But you know what? They need to understand that they are the missing piece. It's their choice. People choose or choose not, but it always is a choice. And there's always a choice. There's only one thing in our whole life we don't have a choice about. Only one. and that's dying. All living things all physical things anyway, come to an end. They've got an expiration date. But everything else in life is a choice. Your success, your freedom, what's in the way, who you're with, what you do. It's all a matter of choice. But we, as I said, avoid responsibility. I'm talking about everybody. Like human beings are wired that way. Because if we're responsible for our choices, then we're responsible for what happens with our choices. And so people don't see that. And our job, your job, my job, everyone's job, when we're really committed to others, is listening for where they're not a choice and giving them a possibility. How many times do you have somebody say, gosh, I really need to lose weight. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and nothing works. And they say, so, okay, well, what are you doing about what are you doing about it? You want to keep that problem or you want to get rid of it? I mean, it's that simple. And that's also one of the toughest things that we have to do as a friend or a coach, because when we give people a choice, we risk how they feel about us. And that's where true leadership comes from, is choosing to make a difference for someone over how they feel about us. But when you show someone that they do have a choice, now it's not up to you. It's not up to you to have the answer. It's up to them.
Thank you, Russ. And we got one last question here. We're from Dorothy Decker.
Oh, go on. Come on.
Well, sorry about that. Lisa, did you have?
I just wanted to add something to Kasia in that, when people are on those catabolic energy levels, the best thing we can do is let go of attachment to the outcome and allow them to be where they're at. And that often is enough to free up the energy to allow them to move to another level.
Awesome. Good point. Good point. Dorothy. Hi, Dorothy.
Yes, hello. I just want to feedback something about all the wonderful sharings all of you have given, and especially come to this point about from the me to the we to the us. It hit or struck me when I heard it first. I'm very new in this community, and there was just a feeling coming up what I wanted to share with you in order to give you the feedback how much success you are building up already by this kind of community you are you developed in this MG, because I had many communities in my life where I was part of, and I had always a we and I had always an us, but I feel first time when I'm here now, I feel there is a me too. So the kind of development here to support each one to find its own me by the community too, not only giving into the community, but also taking from the community, from the safety that is there, in order to find back to what's it all about me and what I really can dare to be and to share.
Yeah.
This is a big thing that especially NG is supporting, I feel. And that's why I'm so happy to have joined you.
So thank you, Dorothy. That's a really good point. And just the whole idea that when you're in that me, that higher self, you can give and take effortlessly, because you're not taking from a place of just you're not taking from a place of taking it from someone else. Quite often you're getting it because of the contribution that you're making. That's why the whole pay it forward. If you help enough people get what they want, you get what you want. So we're coming from, as Martin says, a point of abundance. So it's a great insight.
I'd like to make a quick distinction there, Walter,
Sure.
and that once we get to that point, it's more about receiving than taking, because it is a natural flow. So we just have to be open to receive it. We don't have to take anything. It is just, whereas in the lowest, the catabolic state, then it is a taking. But once we've worked through and we come to that point that you talked about so eloquently, that it is just a matter of receiving, because it's coming our way, whether we want it or not, because that's what's the energy that we're in. So it's just about being able to receive it.
So we can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. Hi. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you. This is, you've just given me $1 million. Thank you. I am awestruck. And I actually came up with, just kind of in a split second, to be revised, but Noble Goldman, a soft place to land, to be heard, build connections, plant your seed, receive, and experience the seamless thread between me to we, and how it leads to us, where your vision becomes reality.
Beautiful.
That's what you just gave me.
Awesome. Thank you, Jane. And thank you, everybody. We're exactly 1 minute before our time. Like I always said, I give a little leeway at the time, but I like to respect everybody's time. So thank you for everybody that joined us today. And thank you to the panelists, Lisa Bowen, Russ Devan, and Martin Ball. You guys are amazing. And for everybody else that showed up, thank you, everybody. Have an awesome week and blessings to everybody. And until next Summit Up, have an amazing time building your network and your community.